Ambassador Thelvan stood near the great window of the Galactic Concord Assembly Station. His bioluminescent skin glowed soft blue as he watched the stars. Today was a historic day. A new species would join the galactic community. They called themselves humans. The Concord had existed for 10,000 years. It was home to over 2,000 species from across the galaxy. They had built a civilization of peace and cooperation. Wars were rare. Violence was almost forgotten. The member species had evolved from prey animals, herbivores, and scavengers. They were gentle beings who valued harmony above all else. Thelvan belonged to the Silithri collective. His people were tall and thin, with translucent skin that glowed with inner light. They had evolved from filter feeders on a water world. They had no claws, no fangs, no weapons built into their bodies. Like most Concord species, they had survived their evolution by hiding, running, or working together in groups. The human ship appeared from faster-than-light travel. It was called the UES Perseverance. Thelvan thought it was a strange name. He did not yet understand what it meant. He walked to the docking bay to greet the visitors. Other ambassadors joined him. There was Krethsor of the Vithani hegemony, an insectoid being with 6 limbs and compound eyes. There was Counselor Mirathene, a Silithri historian. There were representatives from dozens of other species. All of them were excited to meet the newcomers. The airlock opened. The humans stepped out. Thelvan felt something strange, a feeling he could not explain. Deep in his mind, in a place older than thought, something screamed at him to run. His hearts beat faster. His skin flickered with warning colors. He looked around and saw the same reaction in the other ambassadors. Krethsor's antennae were flat against his head. A small, furry delegate from the Mikari Republic was trembling. But why? The humans looked harmless enough. They were medium-sized beings with soft skin and no natural weapons. They had no claws, no scales, no venom. They smiled as they approached, showing their teeth in what seemed like a friendly gesture. Their teeth. Thelvan stared at them. Some were flat for grinding, but others were sharp, pointed, made for tearing. The human leader stepped forward. She was called Captain Elena Vasquez. She had dark hair and dark eyes that faced forward, eyes that focused on Thelvan with an intensity that made him want to step backward. "Ambassador Thelvan," she said. Her voice was warm and friendly. "Thank you for welcoming us. Humanity is honored to meet the Galactic Concord." Thelvan forced himself to remain calm. He extended his hand in the human greeting gesture they had learned about. Captain Vasquez took it. Her grip was firm, strong. Her skin was warm, almost hot. "Welcome to the Concord," Thelvan said. "We hope this is the beginning of a long friendship." The formal ceremonies went well enough. The humans were polite and seemed genuinely happy to be there. They asked many questions about the different species. They expressed wonder at the station's beauty. Captain Vasquez laughed often. Each time she did, Thelvan saw those teeth again. The trouble began at the welcome feast. The Concord had prepared foods from many worlds, fruits and vegetables and grains of every color and texture. The humans seemed pleased. They ate the plant foods with appreciation. Then they brought out their own contribution to the meal. "We wanted to share some Earth cuisine with you," Captain Vasquez said. She opened a container. Inside were strips of something brown and cooked. "This is called beef. It comes from an animal we raise on our world." Thelvan did not understand at first. Then he saw a human pick up a strip and bite into it. The human chewed and swallowed. They were eating flesh, the muscle and tissue of another living creature. A Mikari delegate fainted. Several ambassadors made sounds of distress. Krethsor stood up so fast his chair fell over. Captain Vasquez looked confused. "Is something wrong?" Thelvan could not find words. He watched the humans eat their meat, seemingly unaware of the horror they had caused. Some of them had red juice on their fingers. They licked it off. After the feast, Thelvan went to the biological archives. He needed to understand what he was feeling. He searched the database for information about Earth and its dominant species. What he found made his blood turn cold. Humans were predators. Not just predators, but apex predators. They sat at the top of their planet's food chain. They had hunted and killed countless species. Some they had driven to extinction. Their eyes faced forward for tracking prey. Their bodies were designed for something called persistence hunting. They would chase an animal for hours, sometimes days, never stopping, never giving up, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They sweated through their skin to keep cool while their victims overheated and died. They ate flesh. They wore the skins of dead animals. They had spent most of their history fighting and killing each other in massive wars. Thelvan searched deeper. He found records of creatures called wolves, lions, and sharks. He saw what predators looked like on Earth. Then he looked at humans again. The similarities were unmistakable. He called an emergency meeting of the Security Council. The senior ambassadors gathered in a sealed chamber. Thelvan showed them what he had found. "We have made a terrible mistake," he said. "We have invited hunters into our home." High Commander Krethsor slammed his forelimb on the table. "I knew something was wrong. My instincts told me to flee from the moment I saw them. They seemed so friendly," said a small delegate. "They smiled at us. Predators on their world bare their teeth as a threat display," Thelvan explained, "or to show submission within their pack. We cannot read their signals correctly because we have never encountered beings like them." "What do we do?" asked Mirathene. The council debated for hours. Some wanted to send the humans away immediately. Others argued for caution. A few suggested more extreme measures. "They have weapons," Krethsor said. "Their ship carries devices that could destroy this station. If they are what you say they are, we cannot simply ask them to leave." Meanwhile, on the human ship, Captain Vasquez sat with her officers. She was troubled by the dinner incident. "Did you see how they reacted to the food?" she asked. "They were afraid. Some of them looked at us like we were monsters." Her first officer shrugged. "Cultural differences. They probably just need time to adjust to our dietary habits." Vasquez was not so sure. She had noticed the fear in Ambassador Thelvan's eyes. She had seen how the other species kept their distance. She had felt the tension in the room. "There's something they're not telling us," she said, "and I intend to find out what it is." She looked out the window at the massive station. Somewhere inside, the Concorde was deciding humanity's fate. She did not know it yet, but the galaxy had never faced a question like this before. What do you do when you discover that the friendly newcomers are the thing your ancestors feared most? What do you do when you realize the wolves have come to live among the sheep? 3 months had passed since humanity first arrived at the Concorde. In that time, the galaxy had changed in ways no one expected. News of humanity's true nature spread like fire through dry grass. Every species in the Concorde learned the terrible truth. The friendly newcomers with their warm smiles and curious questions were predators, hunters, killers by evolution. The reaction was swift and divided. High Commander Krethsor became the voice of the militant isolationists. He stood before the Concorde Assembly and demanded action. His compound eyes reflected the lights of 1,000 watching screens as billions of beings across the galaxy listened. "For 10,000 years, we have lived in peace," he said. "Our ancestors fought and died to end the age of predators. They hunted down every hunter. They destroyed every carnivore species that threatened our worlds. They built this civilization on one simple truth. The galaxy belongs to the peaceful." He pointed toward the section where the human delegation sat. Captain Vasquez met his gaze without flinching. "Now we have invited wolves into our home," Krethsor continued. "We have welcomed monsters to our table. Every day they remain here. Every day they learn more about us. We put ourselves in greater danger. I demand that humanity be quarantined, contained, before they multiply, before they spread, before they hunt." The assembly erupted in noise. Some species cheered. Others shouted in protest. Ambassador Thelvan sat in silence, his skin flickering with troubled colors. Captain Vasquez stood to respond. The chamber fell quiet. Even those who hated her could not look away. There was something about the way she moved, the confidence in her posture, that commanded attention. "High Commander Krethsor speaks of monsters," she said. Her voice was calm and steady. "He calls us wolves. He says we are dangerous because of what we eat, because of how our eyes are positioned, because of how our ancestors survived." She paused and looked around the chamber. "On Earth, we have a saying, judge a person by their actions, not their nature. Yes, humans are predators. We evolved to hunt, but we also evolved to love, to create art, to build families, to protect those weaker than ourselves. We are more than our biology." "Pretty words," Krethsor interrupted. "But predators always say what prey wants to hear. Right before they strike." The debate continued for days. No resolution was reached. The Concorde remained divided. Meanwhile, Counselor Mirathene watched everything with careful eyes. She was a historian. She had spent her life studying the past, and she knew something that most of the conquered had forgotten. One night, she sent a secret message to Captain Vasquez. They met in a quiet garden on the station, away from listening devices and watching eyes. "You deserve to know the truth," Mirathene said, "about why they fear you so much." Vasquez listened as the Sci-Fi historian told a story that was older than most civilizations. Long ago, the galaxy was ruled by predator species. They were not like humans. They had no compassion, no mercy, no concept of cooperation with their prey. They built empires on blood and bone. They enslaved entire worlds. They hunted sentient beings for sport. The prey species suffered for millions of years. They were food. They were entertainment. They were nothing. Then came the Great Rising. The prey united across hundreds of worlds. They fought back against their hunters. The war lasted generations and cost billions of lives. But in the end, the prey won. They did not show mercy. They hunted the hunters. They destroyed every predator species they could find. They burned worlds to kill the last of the carnivores. They swore that never again would they allow hunters to threaten them. The Concord was built on that promise, Mirathene explained. Every species here carries the memory of being prey. The fear is in our blood, in our genes. When they look at you, they see the creatures that once hunted their ancestors. Vasquez was quiet for a long moment. "We didn't know," she finally said. "We didn't know any of this. You are something new," Mirathene replied. "Predators who built civilization instead of just empires. Hunters who created art and music and philosophy. We have never seen beings like you before. The conquered does not know how to understand you." "What do you think?" Vasquez asked. "Do you think we're monsters?" Mirathene's skin glowed softly. "I think you are a question the galaxy has never had to answer before. And I think the answer will change everything." Weeks passed. The tension grew worse. Human ships were refused entry at some stations. Human traders faced hostility and suspicion. On some worlds, mobs burned human flags and demanded war. Then the terrorists struck. The supply ship was called the Helena. It carried food and medicine for the human delegation. It was not a warship. It had no weapons. Its crew of 43 included doctors, engineers, and cooks. The bomb was hidden in a cargo container. It exploded just as the Helena entered the station's approach zone. There were no survivors. The galaxy watched and waited. Everyone knew what predators did when they were attacked. Everyone expected the humans to show their true nature at last. Captain Vasquez stood in the human embassy. Around her, officers shouted for revenge. Some wanted to destroy the station. Others demanded that the conquered hand over those responsible or face war. Vasquez raised her hand. The room fell silent. "They want us to attack," she said quietly. "They want us to prove that we are the monsters they believe us to be. If we strike back in anger, we prove them right. We become the thing they fear." 43 people are dead, her first officer said. "Our people. How can we do nothing? We will not do nothing. We will find those responsible. We will bring them to justice, but we will do it through law, through investigation, through proof." Vasquez looked at each of her officers in turn. "We did not survive our own violent history by giving in to our worst instincts. We survived by being better. We will be better now." She requested a meeting with the full Concord Assembly. When she stood before them, every eye in the chamber watched her. Many expected threats. Some expected war. Instead, Vasquez spoke quietly. 43 of my people are dead. They were not soldiers. They were healers and builders and dreamers. They came here in peace and died because someone feared what we might do." She let the silence stretch. "I stand before you today not to make threats. I stand here to make a promise. Humanity will not become the monsters you fear. We will not answer murder with massacre. We will not prove your darkest beliefs correct." She looked directly at Crethsor. "You say we are predators. You are right. But you do not understand what that means. On Earth, the greatest predators are not the most violent. They are the most patient, the most disciplined, the ones who know when not to strike." She turned to address the full assembly. "We will find those who killed our people. We will bring them to face justice. And we will do it without burning your worlds or destroying your stations. Because that is who we choose to be." She walked out of the chamber without another word. In the silence that followed, Ambassador Thelvan felt something shift inside him. For the first time since he had met the humans, the feeling in his gut was not fear. It was something else entirely. It was hope. 6 months after the bombing of the Helena, something ancient and terrible awakened in the darkness between stars. The Kethvori had returned. Thelvan learned of the attacks while working late in his office. The first reports were confused and incomplete. A colony world had gone silent. Then another. Then a third. When the images finally arrived, Thelvan understood true horror. The Kethvori were nightmares given flesh. They stood 12 feet tall with bodies covered in natural armor. They had 4 arms ending in claws that could tear through metal. Their heads were eyeless, but covered in sensors that could detect prey from miles away. They did not speak. They did not negotiate. They did not build or create or dream. They hunted. They killed. They consumed. 8,000 years ago, the ancestors of the Concord believed they had destroyed the Kethvori. They had been wrong. The creatures had simply gone into hiding, sleeping in the void, waiting for the day they would wake again. That day had come. The Concord's defensive fleets mobilized. Thousands of ships crewed by beings who had known nothing but peace rushed to defend their colonies. They believed their numbers and technology would be enough. They were wrong. Thelvan watched the battle recordings with growing despair. The Concord ships moved in neat formations, following protocols designed for policing and peacekeeping. The Kethvori moved like predators. They struck from unexpected angles. They targeted the weakest ships first. They showed no fear of death. In 6 hours, the first defense fleet was destroyed. 12,000 lives lost. Not a single Kethvori ship was damaged. The second fleet lasted 4 hours. The third fleet refused to engage and retreated. Panic spread through the galaxy. Species that had known only peace for thousands of years suddenly faced an enemy they could not negotiate with, could not reason with, could not run from. The Kethvori were hunting again, and nobody knew how to stop them. High Commander Krethsor sat alone in his quarters, staring at the casualty reports. He had spent months demanding that humanity be destroyed or contained. He had given speeches about the danger of predators. He had called the humans monsters and wolves. Now real monsters had arrived, and his people were dying. He did something he never thought he would do. He requested a ship to Earth. Captain Elena Vasquez had been promoted to Fleet Admiral. She commanded all human military forces from a base on Earth's moon. When she received word that Krethsor was coming, she felt no satisfaction. She only felt tired. The Vithani High Commander arrived looking broken. His antennae drooped. His compound eyes were dull. He stood before Vasquez and her officers and did what his pride had never allowed him to do before. He begged. "The Kethvori are destroying us," he said. "Our fleets cannot fight them. Our soldiers do not know how to face an enemy that has no fear, no mercy, no weakness. We are prey trying to fight predators, and we are failing." He looked at Vasquez. "You are hunters. You understand violence in ways we never can. The Concord needs you. The galaxy needs you." He paused. "I need you." Vasquez was silent for a long moment. She thought about the Helena. She thought about the fear in Thelvan's eyes when they first met. She thought about Krethsor's speeches, calling for humanity's destruction. 43 of my people died," she said quietly, "killed by those who feared us. Why should we help a civilization that treats us like monsters?" Krethsor lowered his head. "You have every reason to refuse. I would deserve it. My people would deserve it. We have treated you with suspicion and hatred since the day you arrived. Yes, you have. But there are billions of innocent beings who did nothing wrong. Children who have never heard of Earth. Families who only want to live in peace. The Kethvori do not care about politics or history. They only hunger." Vasquez looked at her officers. Their faces showed mixed emotions. Some wanted to refuse. Some wanted to help. All of them were waiting for her decision. She called a meeting of the United Earth Council. The leaders of humanity gathered to decide if they would join a war that was not their own. The debate was fierce. "They tried to destroy us," said one general. "Let them face the consequences of their weakness. If the Concord falls, the Kethvori will eventually come for us," argued another. "Better to fight them now, alongside allies, than alone later. They are not our allies. They never accepted us. Why should we die for beings who called us monsters?" Admiral Vasquez listened to it all. When the debate finally ended, she stood and spoke. "I have heard every argument," she said. "I understand the anger. I share it. But I cannot let that anger decide what kind of species we will be. She looked at the assembled leaders. On Earth, we have predators that protect. Wolves guard sheepdogs, watch over flocks. Lions defend their prides. Being a predator does not mean being evil. It means having the power to kill. What matters is how we use that power. The Concord feared us because they had only known predators who destroy. The Kethvori are those predators. They are what humans might have become if we had never learned compassion, never built families, never chosen to be more than our instincts. She straightened her shoulders. I say we show the galaxy what predators can truly be. Not hunters of the weak, but guardians against the strong. Not destroyers of civilization, but defenders of it. Let us prove that the thing they fear most can also be their greatest protector. The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity would go to war. Admiral Vasquez sent a message to High Commander Krethsor. It contained only 4 words. We are coming. Hold. She assembled the largest fleet humanity had ever gathered. 300 warships, 50,000 soldiers. The best hunters Earth had ever produced. As the fleet prepared to depart, Vasquez addressed her crews. We go to fight an enemy that knows nothing but hunger. They are what predators become when they have no conscience, no mercy, no love. They are the darkness that hunts between stars. But we are human. We are hunters too. And we have spent thousands of years learning to hunt something more valuable than prey. We hunt hope. We hunt justice. We hunt a future worth living in. The Kethvori believe they are the apex predators of this galaxy. They are about to discover how wrong they are. The fleet jumped to faster than light travel. In the darkness of space, something new was coming. Something the Kethvori had never faced before. Predators who chose to protect. Hunters who fought for those who could not fight for themselves. The wolves were going to war. But they were fighting for the sheep, and the galaxy would never be the same. The war lasted 18 months. It was the bloodiest conflict the galaxy had seen in 10,000 years. And it changed everything. Admiral Vasquez studied the Kethvori the way a hunter studies dangerous prey. She watched their patterns. She learned their tactics. She found their weaknesses. They are predators, she told her officers during the first strategy meeting. But they are predators who have never faced real competition. They have hunted prey for so long that they have forgotten how to deal with other hunters. She pointed to the holographic display showing Kethvori movement patterns. They always attack from above or behind. They always target the weakest first. They always pursue fleeing enemies. These are good tactics against prey. Against other predators, they are predictable. The first major battle came at Velik's station. The Kethvori armada moved in their usual formation, expecting another easy victory against terrified prey ships. Instead, they found human destroyers waiting in the asteroid field. The humans did not fight like the Concorde. They did not form neat lines. They did not follow predictable patterns. They fought like wolves hunting a larger animal. They struck from multiple directions. They retreated to draw enemies into traps. They sacrificed small units to create openings for larger strikes. The Kethvori Hive Admiral had never seen anything like it. For the first time in 8,000 years, his forces took significant losses. He ordered a retreat to analyze this new threat. That night, across the Concorde, billions of beings watched the battle recordings. They saw Kethvori ships burning. They saw the hunters become the hunted. They saw something they had thought impossible. They saw predators being outfought by other predators. The war continued. Humanity adapted and improved with each battle. They learned that Kethvori ships were fast but fragile. They learned that Kethvori commanders could not handle unexpected situations. They learned that the ancient hunters had become predictable through thousands of years without challenge. But victory came at a terrible cost. The UES Perseverance, the very ship that had first brought humans to the Concorde, was destroyed in a battle over Silithri space. A Kethvori fleet had appeared without warning, heading straight for a civilian evacuation convoy. 20 million Silithri refugees would die unless something stopped the hunters. Captain Marcus Chen of the Perseverance made a choice. He turned his ship to face the enemy fleet alone. All ships continue evacuation, he transmitted. Perseverance will delay pursuit. Admiral Vasquez heard the transmission from her command ship 3 star systems away. She closed her eyes. She knew what Chen was doing. She knew there was no way to stop him. The Perseverance fought for 3 hours. 1 human ship against 50 Kethvori hunters. Chen and his crew used every trick they knew. They destroyed 8 enemy ships before their weapons failed. They rammed a 9th before their engines died. The Kethvori finally tore the Perseverance apart. But by then, the evacuation convoy was gone. 20 million Silithri lived because one human ship and its crew chose to die. When news of the sacrifice reached the Concorde, something changed. The prey species had seen humans as monsters, as threats, as dangerous animals to be feared. Now they saw something else. They saw humans dying to save lives that were not their own. Counselor Mirathene traveled to the front lines. She had to see for herself what was happening. She found Admiral Vasquez on a hospital station, visiting wounded soldiers. "I watched the recordings from Velik Station," Mirathene said. "I saw your soldiers carry wounded Vithani to safety. I saw human doctors work without sleep to save alien lives. I saw your people weep when Concorde civilians died." She paused, her skin glowing with confused colors. "You hunt like predators, but you also protect like nothing I have ever seen. How is this possible?" Vasquez was quiet for a moment. "On Earth, we have hunters that protect their packs. We have predators that die to save their children. Being dangerous does not mean being evil. It means having the power to choose who you protect and who you fight. You chose to protect us," Mirathene said softly. "Even after we called you monsters, because that is who we want to be." The war reached its climax at the Battle of Velurus Prime. The Kethvori Hive Admiral gathered his entire remaining fleet for a final assault. If he destroyed the Concorde assembly station, the symbol of galactic unity would fall. The prey species would scatter and the long hunt would begin again. Admiral Vasquez called every ship she could find: human warships, Silithri sensor vessels, Vithani swarm carriers, Mikari scouts. For the first time in galactic history, prey species and predator species would fight side by side. The two fleets met in the shadow of Velurus Prime. 300 Kethvori ships faced 200 human and Concorde vessels. The Hive Admiral transmitted a message. His species had no spoken language, but they had learned to use electronic communication to terrify their prey. "We are the darkness between stars. We have hunted since before your species crawled from mud. We will hunt long after your bones are dust. Flee and we will make your deaths quick. Fight and we will feast on your screams." Admiral Vasquez responded on an open channel. She knew the Kethvori would hear. "You call yourselves hunters. You think you understand what it means to be apex predators, but you have spent so long hunting prey that you have forgotten what it means to face another hunter." She looked at the tactical display. Around her, human officers stood ready. On the communication channels, Concorde allies waited for orders. "You are not the darkness between stars. You are just monsters who forgot that monsters can be killed. We are human. We are hunters. And today, we hunt you." The battle began. The Kethvori attacked with their usual tactics, expecting fear and confusion. Instead, they found coordinated resistance. Human destroyers drew enemy ships into kill zones. Silithri sensor arrays tracked Kethvori movements and shared data with the entire fleet. Vithani carriers released swarms of small fighters that overwhelmed enemy defenses. The Hive Admiral could not understand what was happening. Prey did not fight like this. Prey ran. Prey screamed. Prey died. These beings did not act like prey. They acted like something the Hive Admiral had never encountered. They acted like predators. The battle lasted 6 hours. Humanity lost 60 ships. The Concorde lost 40. 12,000 soldiers died from a dozen different species. The Kethvori lost everything. When the last enemy ship was destroyed, Admiral Vasquez stood on the bridge of her command vessel and looked out at the stars. Bodies floated in the debris. Human, Silithri, Vithani, Kethvori, all equal in death. She felt no joy, only exhaustion and grief and a small, fierce pride. They had done it. Predators and prey, fighting as one. They had faced the darkness together and they had won. Counselor Mirathene's voice came over the communication channel. "Admiral, the Concorde thanks you. The galaxy thanks you." Vasquez closed her eyes. "Thank the soldiers who died. Thank the crews who sacrificed themselves. Thank Captain Chen and the Perseverance. They are the ones who earned this victory." "What happens now?" Mirathene asked. Vasquez looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, the remaining Kethvori were hiding, broken but not destroyed. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was beginning to heal. "Now we rebuild," she said, "and we make sure this never happens again." 2 years had passed since the Battle of Valurus Prime. The galaxy had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. Admiral Elena Vasquez, now 70 years old, returned to the Concord Assembly Station one final time. Her hair had turned white. Her steps were slower than before, but her eyes still held the same steady fire they had always held. She had been asked to address the Concord on the 10th anniversary of humanity's first contact. The same chamber that had once debated whether to destroy humanity now waited to hear her speak. The station had been rebuilt after the battle. It was more beautiful than before, with memorials honoring those who had died in the war. Names were carved into walls of crystal. Human names, Silithri names, Vithani names, names from every species that had fought together. Thelvan met Vasquez at the entrance. He was High Counselor of the Concord now, the highest position any being could hold in galactic government. His bioluminescent skin glowed warm and steady. "Admiral," he said, "it has been too long." "High Counselor." Vasquez smiled. "You have done well. The Concord is stronger than ever." They walked together toward the assembly chamber. Along the way, beings of every shape and size stopped to watch them pass. Some bowed. Some reached out to touch Vasquez's hand. All of them looked at her with something that had replaced fear. Respect, gratitude, trust. "I remember the first day you arrived," Thelvan said quietly. "I was terrified of you. Every instinct told me you were dangerous." "Your instincts were right," Vasquez replied. "We are dangerous." "Yes. But I understand now that dangerous and evil are not the same thing. A fire can destroy a forest or keep a family warm. A flood can kill thousands or bring life to a desert. Power is not good or bad, only how it is used." They reached the assembly chamber. The vast room was full. Representatives from every member species had gathered. More watched through screens across the galaxy. Billions of beings waited to hear what the old human warrior would say. High Counselor Thelvan took the central platform first. His voice carried through the chamber and across the stars. 10 years ago, humanity came to the Concord. I was one of those who welcomed them. I was also one of those who feared them. He paused, his skin flickering with the memory of old shame. When I learned what they were, I voted to quarantine them. I believed that predators could only destroy. I believed that hunters could never be trusted. I was wrong. He turned to look at Vasquez. Humanity did not prove me wrong through words. They proved me wrong through blood, through sacrifice, through dying to protect beings who had called them monsters. I have studied history for 300 years. I have never found a species that chose to change what it was born to be. Until now. He extended his hand toward Vasquez. "My friends, my fellow beings of the Concord, it is my honor to introduce Admiral Elena Vasquez, the human who taught the galaxy that predators can protect." The chamber erupted in applause. The sound rolled like thunder through the station. Species that had never agreed on anything came together to honor one old woman and the civilization she represented. Vasquez walked slowly to the platform. She looked out at the assembled beings. She saw Silithri glowing with warm colors. She saw Vithani standing at attention. She saw 100 other species, each one unique, all of them watching her with trust in their eyes. 10 years ago, I stood on this station for the first time, she began. I was confused by your fear. I did not understand why you looked at us like we were monsters. I did not know the history that made predators into nightmares. Now I understand. Your ancestors suffered under hunters who knew nothing but cruelty. The Concord was built on the promise that such horror would never happen again. When you saw us, you saw the return of everything you had escaped. She let the silence stretch. You were right to be afraid. We are predators. Our instincts drive us to hunt, to chase, to conquer. Every day, we feel the pull of our darker nature, but we have spent thousands of years learning to master that nature. On Earth, we fought wars that killed millions. We built weapons that could destroy our world. We came close to ending ourselves many times. We survived because we learned something the Kethvori never did. We learned that being strong does not mean being cruel. We learned that the greatest victory is not over enemies, but over ourselves. She looked at the memorial wall, where the names of the fallen were carved in light. Captain Chen, Lieutenant Reyes, Ensign Park, and 12,000 others. Humans who died to protect species they had never met. They did not fight because they were told to. They fought because they chose to. That is what being human means. Not the hunting, Not the teeth, not the forward-facing eyes. It is the choice. Every day, we choose what kind of predators we will be. She turned back to the assembly. The war is over. The Kethvori are contained. Some will say we should destroy them completely, as your ancestors destroyed the predators of old. But we have a different proposal. We offer them a choice. The same choice we make every day. They can remain in isolation, following their instincts, forever separate from galactic civilization, or they can learn to be more than what they were born to be. If we are proof of anything, it is that change is possible, even for predators, even for hunters, even for monsters. She straightened her old shoulders. Humanity proposes the creation of the Sentinel Corps, a multi-species military organization dedicated not to conquest, but to protection. Any species can join. Any being who wishes to defend others can learn. The prey can become protectors. The hunters can become guardians. Together we can build a galaxy where strength is used for protection instead of domination. She looked around the chamber one final time. We are the apex predators of this galaxy. We accept that title, but we will use it to lead the way toward something better, not through conquest, through example. Join us, learn from us, teach us. Let us build something that has never existed before, a civilization where hunters and prey stand together as equals. The vote was unanimous. The Sentinel Corps was established that day. In the years that followed, it grew beyond anyone's expectations. Silithri learned to command warships. Bethani mastered tactics. Species that had never held weapons discovered they had courage they never knew existed, and leading them all, always, were the humans. Not because they demanded obedience, not because they conquered or controlled, because they showed the way. After the ceremony, Counselor Mirathine walked with Admiral Vasquez through the station's memorial garden. Stars shone through the transparent dome above them. Do you think they understood? Mirathine asked. All of it? Vasquez smiled. Her teeth showed, but there was only warmth in the expression now. Some did. The rest will learn. That is how civilization works. You keep teaching. You keep showing. You keep choosing to be better, until even those who fear you learn to stand beside you. She looked up at the stars. We spent a long time mastering our own nature. Now we help the galaxy master theirs. Not through conquest, through example. We are the apex predators, she said quietly. And we have learned that the greatest hunt is not for prey. It is the hunt for a future worth living in. Mirathine stood beside her old friend and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled alongside Silithri and Vithani and a dozen other species. Somewhere out there, young soldiers of every kind learned to be guardians instead of hunters or prey. The galaxy had changed. The predators had shown a new way. And it was only the beginning. 100 years later, in a classroom on a distant world, a young Kethvori sat among students from a dozen species. She was one of the first of her kind to join the Sentinel Academy. Her instructor was an old human named Commander David Chen, grandson of the captain who had died to save 20 million Silithri. Why did you join? A Silithri student asked the Kethvori. The young hunter thought for a long moment. I want to be more than what I was born to be. Commander Chen smiled. Then you have already learned the most important lesson. What we are does not define us, only what we choose to become. He looked at his class. Predators and prey, sitting side by side, learning to be something new. The galaxy once feared hunters. Now it is defended by them. That is the legacy of Admiral Vasquez. That is what it means to be an apex predator. We lead the way, not through fear, through hope, and in the stars above, humanity continued its greatest hunt, the endless pursuit of a better tomorrow.